What's good is King Kai. Short answer is you don't. The reason why I'm making this video is because I wanted to give you some practical diet advice that you can apply right now to your diet plan so you can get rid of all the plateaus. You see a lot of videos on YouTube, people in the fitness industry, and it's ironic because I'm in the fitness industry, but the people who are like the fitness influencers, they say stuff like calories in versus calories out. As long as it fits your macros, you can eat junk food, it doesn't matter. They say all these things to try to get you to believe that you can eat whatever you want and click on their video and like give them more money. Now, I want to tell you guys that it's all garbage. Everything that you've heard is most likely wrong, and I don't think you should be listening to these kind of people. Everyone has their own opinions, but I want to give you a reason why I think this is false. You've been sold a lie, and doing these kind of things that they tell you to do is going to be an extreme detriment to your health and your long-term physical performance, I guarantee it. So now, go ahead and keep listening, and I'll tell you guys more about what you should be doing instead of eating all these junk foods and whatnot. Now, most diet advice consists of caloric deficit, caloric surplus. It's very generic and not as informative as it can be. And I want to tell you guys a different way that you can implement, or different things you can implement into your diet. Now, first things first, before you guys start changing the food, most of you have to change how you feel about food, right? A lot of you don't have a very strong relationship with food. And by what I mean is, you either think everything is too unhealthy, you feel guilty when you eat certain things, you don't know what to eat, or you end up binging. And that's very common amongst a lot of people who are struggling with diet. And I know diet is a very big thing here. So I wanted to try to help change your mindset towards food. Now, the first one I want to touch on is fats, okay? So the question we have to ask, is fat unhealthy? And really, it's not actually. If I asked that question a long time ago, then I would have said, yeah, fat is unhealthy, but that's not necessarily the case. It depends on the kind of fat that you're consuming. So like there's trans fat and saturated fat, and there's also like the small ones like polysaturated fat, monosaturated, but I'm gonna focus on saturated and trans fat, okay? Saturated fat is okay, like you'll find that in a lot of healthy fats like avocados and peanuts, but trans fat is the bad one. That's where you're gonna see is a lot of foods that make it taste good. Fat makes food taste good. Now that's the food or the fat that you want to avoid. Now I'm telling you this because I don't want you guys to think you see fat, oh, unhealthy. It doesn't work like that. Your body needs fats to survive. Fats is not only a small cushion to the bone, it also helps regulate body temperature and bodily hormones, okay? So we need those. Don't be afraid of fats. Don't run away from them. Now those are the type of the nutritional fats or there's plenty of other kinds, but those are the two main nutritional fats that I'm talking about. There's also two versions of bodily fat that I want to touch on. So now, you see how you squeeze your arm like this, right? We have fat on our body, obviously. Now this is called subcutaneous fat. You'll find this just by pinching anywhere on your body, okay? It's gonna be that thin layer that's gonna be protecting the inside. Now there's also a second form of fat called visceral fat. Now that is the dangerous one. This is the dangerous fat that we need to look out for. Visceral fat is essentially belly fat that's going to collect in your midsection and coat your organs. And this kind of fat is what leads to metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome consists of like heart disease, stroke, cardiovascular disease, stuff like that. This is what we need to be careful of. Now everyone, it's kind of weird because everyone's contracting metabolic syndrome and most of them are just, like some people don't even look unhealthy, but they have visceral fat. And that also ties into this. It's not about how much food that we're going to be eating. It's about the kind of food that you're eating, okay? It's not how much, it's what kind of food that you're eating. That's why there are skinny people who are unhealthy. Have you met someone who is skinny? They don't really gain a whole lot of weight, but they eat whatever they want. I'm sure you've seen people like that. They eat whatever they want. They drink Monster energy drinks and they smoke a lot, okay? That person is likely more unhealthy, not likely, very probably guaranteed more unhealthy than someone who's just a little bit thicker but has a really good diet. Because this person who's skinny treats his body so poorly that he's collected so much visceral fat and all of his systems are just so weak because they're not being trained that much. So visceral fat is the one that we need to look out for. Now, how does visceral fat really collect? It's not necessarily a caloric surplus, which is another thing that we were made to believe, that if you eat too much, you'll get fat. That's not necessarily it. Like you'll gain weight if you're just eating more than you're expending, yeah, but it's not necessarily the collection of visceral fat. The way visceral fat is being collected is primarily through sugar. So sugar is the one thing that is basically killing everybody. I'm sure you're aware, the world is riddled with obesity and metabolic syndrome and all of these health-related diseases, okay? Like it's an epidemic. And this can come from the processed foods that everyone's eating, and this comes from all the sugar that everyone's eating. An American's sugar intake is extremely high, like higher than it should be. And the sugar itself is it goes straight to your body fat percentage, and it goes right to visceral fat because the body has no use for that kind of sugar. Initially, I want to tell you guys that sugar isn't necessarily bad depending on what kind of sugar it is. So there's glucose, fructose, and sucrose. Glucose is good because that your body makes that naturally already. Fructose and sucrose are the bad ones that's added sugar. So like if you go to any food and you find some kind of food that you want to eat, and you look at the nutrition page, then it's usually it has some kind of added sugar, probably like it's some kind of treat or something like that. The added sugar is the fructose, high fructose corn syrup, and that's what makes everything taste good. Okay, that's what everyone does, or that's what the food industry does, so you can get addicted and buy more, and then you get fat, and then you get addicted to it again, and you buy more and more and more. Okay, so sugar. You need to be very careful about your sugar intake if you're going to make any kind of progress. And I can guarantee you, if you reduce your sugar intake right now, let's say you're a sugar addict, because you probably are. Like if statistically, you probably are a sugar addict. If you reduce that, you'll see a dramatic increase in energy, and you'll probably lose a lot more body fat quicker than you thought was ever possible. I'm sure you've met people who eat a lot of sugar, a lot of junk food. They look, feel, and act like garbage. Like they look like they eat bad food. It's reflected on their body, and they also never have any energy for anything. And I actually wanted to get into that too. Now this is the reason why I have an issue with the calories in versus calories out argument. It's stupid. It's really stupid, because when you believe that it's calories in versus calories out, and it does not matter what kind of food that you're eating, that's how you start building up your visceral fat. That's why people are dying. It's because they think that you can just put in any food you want and take out any food you want. That's like saying, for example, like you have a car, right? That's like saying you can put in any kind of oil that you want. So for example, like I have a BMW. It's fairly old, but it's still a BMW at the end of the day. Okay. Now this car, if I put in anything that's not synthetic oil, it's not going to respond to it as well as it would with synthetic. It's not just any oil in, any oil out. I need to put in exactly what it needs to function properly. And that's the same thing that applies to your body. If you put in any food, you will not ever perform as well as you would if you ate good foods. And you can't argue with me on that. It's not, you can't. If you have fried chicken and fries and like a soda, and I have my steak, vegetables, and like potatoes, and we go to the gym the next day, I will beat you. 100% I will beat you, because you have all that food that's weighing you down, and your body can't use that energy because it's not useful for anything. But I absorbed all the carbohydrates, the proteins, the fats, all that kind of stuff, and I'll be able to perform better than you. So please ask yourself a question: is sacrificing your health really worth vanity metrics? I really hope not, because it's not worth it. Okay, so now I wanted to go, this is probably pretty quick, but I wanted to go over hormones. Now before you click off and you start saying, "Ugh, hormones is boring," you need to know how hormones work if you're gonna understand how the food you're eating is affecting you. So you can click off if you want to, but you're missing out on a lot of important information. So the hormones that I'm talking about that's in food or regulates our food, the three main ones, there's probably like millions of them, but the three main ones that I'm talking about is leptin, ghrelin, and insulin. Okay, so leptin is a hormone that basically says I'm full. Okay, so when you eat enough food, leptin is a signal that's being released in your body saying that I'm full, I have enough energy, I don't want to consume anymore. So then you feel full. Ghrelin is a hormone that makes you say I'm hungry. You feel the ghrelin hormone, and when you feel that, your body wants more food. And insulin is the hormone that is the interesting one. So insulin it breaks down carbohydrates, and it promotes the storage of fat. But the interesting thing about insulin is that not only does it store fat, it also blocks leptin, which is the weird part. So when you eat food that spikes your insulin levels, the leptin signal in your body is being halted, so you don't feel full. Okay, so have you ever noticed that when you eat your junk food, you don't feel satisfied, right? You don't feel satisfied. You feel your stomach is stretching, but you don't feel full yet. It's because your insulin has been spiked, and it's usually from the carbohydrates and the added sugars. And that's what like I said before, your body doesn't need those in your body. Well, it needs carbohydrates, but it doesn't need the extra sugars. Okay, and sugar spikes your insulin. So that's why people who indulge on junk food, or they're chronic binge eaters, if you're a binge eater, this is probably why, is because the food that you're eating has no nutritional value, your body doesn't really need it, and it spikes your insulin and makes it feel like you're still hungry, so you keep eating. And you have a hard time stopping because you're binging on this food that's like not really regulating your hormones very well. Now it sucks because if we look on the food pyramid, it's gonna tell us that carbohydrates are the main ones that you should be consuming, because as you see, like on the top, you have like sugars and sweets and whatnot, and you have carbohydrates on the bottom. But carbohydrates are not in fact bad. Might I add this real quick? They're not bad, but a lot of them have added sugars in it that spike your insulin and make it hard for you to feel satisfied. So really a better diet that you should be following, it should be one that's high in protein and high in fats. If you think about it, humans didn't really need like high carbohydrates. Like we just ate meat all the time. Like we ate meat and grass. We don't necessarily need churros and white bread and potato bread. So that's the unfortunate part about the food pyramid. Like it's kind of deceiving. So you have carbohydrates at the bottom, but I think they should probably regulate how much carbohydrates you're eating. Your diet should be moderate to low carbohydrates. The more carbs you're eating, your stomach starts to stretch, but you never feel satisfied. It spikes your insulin and makes it harder to feel satisfied. However, if you eat foods that don't spike your insulin, then you'll feel a lot more full and satiated, and you won't even want to eat as much. And the good thing about that is that, let's say like you want to eat later, you still have plenty of calories left. And that's also the dangerous thing. I'm ranting at this point, but that's the dangerous thing about all these, like this fast food and whatnot. It's so high in calories, and it doesn't like make you feel full. So you keep eating, you keep eating all this extra sugar, you keep eating all this extra garbage, and then you get fat, and then you just it's a cycle. It's really unfortunate, but that's just how it goes. So now to come full circle, like you learned a little bit about the hormones. So this is what I'm saying. This is my suggestion. A good diet boils down to consuming more good foods, and not necessarily taking out the bad stuff, but consuming more good foods. Now, before you crucify me, let me explain myself. So most people are addicted to food. Like you see that everyone has, not everyone, but a lot of people have a food addiction. If you tell this person to stop eating cookies, candy, and cake, then they're probably gonna go back to it. Because like if you take, let's say like an alcoholic or a drug addict, if you take away their substance of choice, then they're just gonna be thinking about it all the time. You know what I mean? But if you start adding in good things to replace the bad things, then you won't feel as inclined to indulge in the bad things. So this is what I'm saying, like with your diet, I want you guys to start prioritizing putting in good food and not prioritizing taking out the bad food yet. At the end of the day, it needs to be gone. Like I'm not gonna argue that it doesn't, it needs to be out. But right now, if you have a hard time dealing, or if you have a bad relationship with food, I think you should start putting in like better foods. Now, you're probably gonna ask me, what are good foods? The way you can figure out like if a food is good or not is basically off of its ingredients. And let's say, for example, like if you go to the store and like you get something that's like whole wheat, like you notice how the ingredients say like whole wheat, or potatoes, like the ingredient is just like potato. Like that's not that many ingredients. So that means it's most likely a good food. But if you look at food that's processed, so let's say like you go to Five Guys or something. I used to eat Five Guys all the time. But if you go to Five Guys or something, the burgers probably have a lot of ingredients in it. Or if you go to some kind of fast food like Jack in the Box or McDonald's, the food that they're making has a lot of ingredients in it, which means it's processed. So if it's processed, it's not a good food to be eating. So I want you guys to reduce how much you're eating of that, but prioritize putting in good food. Now the good foods also don't spike your insulin levels either. So that'd be stuff like that's high in protein and high in healthy fats. I like to eat avocados a lot. So avocados is my fat of choice, or nuts. So a food that doesn't spike your insulin, that makes you feel full and satisfied, is the way to go. And there's also something called the Glycemic Index, which tells you if a food is gonna spike your insulin or not. So let's say the higher it is, like the more insulin it's putting into your body, the lower it is, the less insulin. So let's say like a low glycemic index food is like peanuts. Like peanuts is a really good food to eat. But a high glycemic index food will be something like some kind of sugary beverage, like soda or something like that. Those are the ones that you want to be avoiding. Now remember, like I said, if it has a lot of ingredients in it, you probably shouldn't be eating it. It's okay to indulge every now and then. I don't want you guys to feel so restricted to the point that you can't ever eat the bad foods ever again. The point is that we need to be prioritizing the food that's gonna help us in the long run. You can eat your ice cream every now and then, like very, Very rarely. Please don't like try to eat it every single day. That's the reason why you guys are gaining weight. You have to regulate the sugar intake. But you should primarily be eating good food. These good foods will make you feel full and satisfied, and honestly, they don't even taste that bad. Another problem like with eating healthy is that a lot of people think that it's gonna taste bad for some reason. And if it tastes bad, you just suck at cooking, dude. Like, it's really not that bad. I just made some stuffed chicken breast with pesto and mozzarella cheese, and it was absolutely fire, right? But someone else, like, if they don't know how to cook that kind of stuff, then they'll think it tastes bad. It's like people who go to my gym and they think that exercise is cardio. Like, I can't tell you how many people come up to me, like, when they want to, like, get on a training plan, right? And then they say, oh, I'm just gonna exercise. I'm just gonna do some cardio, like, on the treadmill. And I'm like, that's so boring. Like, you can do so many other things, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. Like, if you don't understand food yet, then you probably think that eating is bad, or eating good food tastes bad. That's not true. You gotta level up your cooking skills, because at that point, good food will taste amazing. Like, honestly, I don't even feel inclined to eat bad food because it just, my body wants good stuff now. So I want chicken breast, I want steak, I want potatoes, I want vegetables, I want fruits. I don't want ice cream. Like, I eat it every now and then, but I don't like it that much. And let's say a big one for me was circus animal cookies. Oh my God, I tear that up. But now I don't really eat it as much because I don't crave it anymore. Before I used to crave it, but now I don't, since I have a more healthy relationship with food. Now I wanted to briefly touch on caloric surplus, caloric deficit, maintenance calories, and also metabolic rate, okay? So the metabolic rate is how many calories your body needs to maintain its bodily functions. So let's say it's like to breathe right now. This is how many calories that it needs to breathe, for its heart to beat, for the blood to flow. Your maintenance calories is how many calories your body needs to maintain its weight. A caloric surplus is how many calories you need to eat to gain weight, and a caloric deficit is how many calories you need to consume to lose weight. Okay, now this is how it works. If you want to lose weight, if you want to lose some kind of weight, then you want to be in a caloric deficit that's around 200 to 500 calories below your maintenance. And now if you want to gain weight, then you would eat 200 to 500 calories above your maintenance. Now the reason why I didn't want to touch on this early is because it's kind of, you've heard it a million times, and I don't want to say the same thing that everyone else has been saying, but it's still important for me to include. But you want to make sure that you're in a deficit if you want to lose weight too. And if you want to gain weight, you need to make sure that you're eating. And also when you're eating, or when you're eating to gain weight, this is not an excuse for you to binge. Okay? And I'm saying this because people in a caloric surplus, they say, oh, I'm bulking so I can eat whatever I want. Like, no, you're stupid. Like, you should not be eating junk food, because when you eat all this junk food and you start binging on bad food, then the weight that you gain is gonna be fat, and you're gonna look like a balloon. Like, you're gonna look stupid. You're gonna look goofy, and you probably skip legs too. So you probably should not be eating bad foods. If you're in a surplus, make sure that you're eating a lot of good, satiating foods, which is what I explained already. I already talked about like the satiating foods like protein intake and whatnot. This is not an excuse for you to binge eat. And that's again a reason why I don't care for fitness influencers anymore, is because when you see these 10,000 calorie challenges, right? Most of these guys are so obsessed with vanity and making sure that their body is beautiful that they'll do anything to make sure that they can keep it and their image and reputation. So the mental health is probably in shags, okay? And when they do these 10,000 calorie challenges, it's simply an excuse for them to indulge in their binge eating. And that's why I don't care about this. You shouldn't be eating 10,000 calories. And if you tell me that people like, I don't know, The Rock or something, like they eat, because you see like him eating 10,000 calories, or Hodge twins eating 10,000 calories or whatever. You're not Hodge twins. You're not The Rock. You shouldn't be eating that much. So remember, this is not an excuse for you to binge if you want to bulk. You should be bulking on good food. All right, King Kai is watching you. So yeah, make sure that you can find your maintenance calories, and if you want to gain or lose weight, you want to be above or below that by a little bit. Now, with either direction, make sure that you don't increase or decrease it too quickly, because that can be unsustainable. Like, there are times where I've been on 1,100 calories at one point. And did I stay on that? No. Aha, psych. I didn't stay on 1,100 calories, so that's hard. Like, if I went from 2,200 down to 1,100, then like I'm starving to death basically. If you need to do it like incrementally over time, so let's say over time you do like -200, because that's pretty easy. That's just like one less protein bar or something. So like you do 200, and then you subtract another 200, then you subtract another 200, and then stay at a certain level. Like, you don't want to subtract it all the way down to 900 calories. Like, no, you don't want to do that. But once you get to like your goal weight, then you can just keep eating that same, or you can start bulking and adding more muscle on. That's if you choose. That's your prerogative. Do whatever you want, but make sure you don't drop down too quickly or go up too quickly. Now, I'm hoping that you guys were able to get a better idea on what you should be doing, and now I want to wrap it up all again. Make sure that you guys are reducing your sugar intake. That's a big one. That's huge. Sugar beyond all is going to destroy your diet if you don't take control of it. So like if you drink a lot of soda, like if you're on the computer playing League of Legends and like you're drinking Mountain Dew and Sprite, that's gotta go. Like, I would get rid of that immediately. But let's say if you're eating other processed food, try to eat good food first, and then if you're still hungry, I guess go eat the bad food. But if you're eating like chicken breast, you're not gonna be hungry because like all the protein is gonna make you feel satisfied. So make sure you prioritize adding good foods into your diet, and then once the good food starts to take over, the bad foods will naturally start to fall away. Do not follow calories in versus calories out, because 100 calories of sugar is not the same as 100 calories of protein. It's not. And if someone says that's false, then they're wrong. Remember visceral fat. Remember what I told you. Like, the sugar is going to make it so that you get metabolic syndrome later if you don't pay attention to it. Add more good foods. Start reducing the bad foods. Reduce sugar, and do not follow calories in versus calories out. Like, make sure you prioritize good foods that are satiating and is also pretty low on the glycemic index. Okay. This is your Sensei King Kai. If I missed anything, then please let me know. I would love to make a follow-up video about it, but I hope this helped you guys. I really do, okay? Comment down below for me, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and also I wanted to include a free workout in the description for you guys to take home with you if you'd like. You can go to the gym, open it up, and then you have some weight training exercises to do, and that's about it for me, all right? See you guys in the next one. Deuces.